Hello and welcome to SweetSpotDFS. It's a DFS strategy video for the 2021 Memorial Tournament. Now, if you haven't seen the DFS preview video I put out yesterday, I highly recommend you go and watch it because I'm going to be pulling information from that video over this one with very little explanation. It would be worthwhile to watch that video to understand what I'll be talking about in this video. I'll still explain a little bit, but I highly encourage you to watch that one. What we covered in that preview video went over course history, recent form, last week results, as well as strokes gained stats and salaries, all through the bucket system. And if you're unfamiliar with the bucket system, it's my way to analyze the top 10 of every single tournament every single year. Because I'm always in pursuit of the optimal lineup. Whenever I build lineups, that's my ultimate goal, is to build the optimal lineup because I want to take down a GPP. In order to do that, we need to get all 6 of our golfers inside the top 10. So that's where the bucket system comes into play. In this video, I'm going to be adding time pairings to try to get a little bit of an edge of golfers, like good golfers grouped together, because I believe, I'm a competitive golfer myself, I believe you can draft off of each other. Basically what that means is if you know your group is playing well, it's going to boost your level of play. But on the other side of that, if your group is kind of playing bad, it's really hard to get into a rhythm. You tend to play bad with your group. It's not an exact science. Obviously, some golfers can play better or they can play just as good when their group is playing bad as if they were to play good. So there's some there, but I do believe there is an advantage. So I will be talking about that. And then I'll be covering grass stats to get a little bit more of an edge and to narrow our player pool down just a little bit, because I will be eliminating golfers who have 0% success rate of finishing inside the top 10 on bent grass events. And then I will be creating anchor buckets and anchor plays. So basically, I will tell you the golfers I think you need to surround your team with, or start your team with, I should say. And I'll also use the optimizer at the end of this video just to see what it picks out. I'll put some conditionals in there and just let it do its thing and kind of give you guys an idea of what it likes, because it's going to be using the SweetSpot score, which I'll also be covering. And yeah, it should give us a good idea. Anyways, I want to remind you guys there are timestamps in the description below. Those timestamps can also be found on YouTube's progress bar. All you gotta do is hover over the progress bar. You'll find the timestamps that way. Let's go ahead and get into this thing. So the very first thing that I'm going to talk about is the SweetSpot score, because how I talk about time pairings is based off that SweetSpot score. It's also based off of scoring in general, but I'm really going to be, talking about the guys that have good SweetSpot scores. So let's go ahead, take a look. Let's see the ranking of that. And before we actually talk about that, I want to let you guys know how I came up with this score. I'm looking at the stats that you see on the screen now. Official World Golf ranking. Looking at the grass average. I should just say bent grass average, and this should be top 10 bent grass percentage. So this is their success rate finishing inside the top 10 on bent grass golf courses. Looking at course history, bogey avoidance, birdie or better. And then I have 3 recent form stats: DK average, recent form average, and scoring average. Those are all stats from the last 8 weeks. That's how I look at recent form. And then we have season-long DK average and season-long scoring average. That creates a score. Based off that score, I have a ranking over here. And right now I actually have it sorted by that ranking. So you can see your number 1 golfer is Jon Rahm, followed by Jordan Spieth and Rory McIlroy. I like Rahm, and I don't mind Jordan Spieth. In the beginning of the week, I kind of was a little iffy on it just because I didn't like how he finished last week, and I thought he might have a little fatigue coming into this tournament. But I've kind of compared, what him coming into this tournament looked like from previous tournaments, and it looks very similar. This is his 4th tournament this year in a row. This will be, I should say. So the Memorial Tournament marks his 4th tournament in a row. He's done this before, and he's finished 7th. And that came from a top 10 or a top 20 finish before. I think it was in 2019. So if I pull up 2019, there you go. Jordan Spieth finished 8th at that same tournament, the Charles Schwab Challenge, and then finished 7th at the Memorial. And again, he had 3 tournaments just prior to this. him coming into this tournament. This marked his 4th one in 2019. He has that very same look in 2021. Let me scroll up to him. You can see 3 tournaments coming in, and who knows? I don't know what his result's going to be, but it shouldn't be a deterrent. If anyone's talking about fatigue, I don't think you have much to worry about. So anyways, yeah, I like Jordan Spieth a little bit, but I really like the 4 golfers underneath Spieth. I like McIlroy, Schauffele, Matsuyama, and Finau. Finau and Matsuyama, kind of, as I was going through the preview video, they were just kind of popping up quite a bit. They were in all of the buckets that showed a lot of success. So for me, it's like, okay, Finau, got it. I'm not a huge fan of, I shouldn't say I'm not a huge fan. I'm not someone who really trusts Tony Finau. I'm sure a lot of you guys don't either. I just don't see the winning shots. It's not the winning attitude. It's not anything, I don't think it has anything to do with his demeanor. I just think he's making the wrong choices at the wrong time. And I don't think it has anything to do with him not being a killer or not being a winner or anything like that. I just think he's executing poorly, or he's making bad decisions when he needs to be making the right decision. And I think that's what's causing him just to miss out on winning tournaments. But he's in a lot of the buckets that show a lot of success. I like Finau. I like Matsuyama. Same story there as well. I think Matsuyama is just a solid play. 9,400 and 9,200. Those guys they're just priced they're in a good price range. They make lineup building easy. Same goes with Xander. Xander just missed the cut at the PGA Championship, but the guy is an elite golfer. I think he's ranked 5th in the world. $9,700 is a little, it feels like a little disrespect. Each one of these 9K golfers are above Justin Thomas, Bryson DeChambeau, and Collin Morikawa. I can tell you right now, I'm only going to play Morikawa in one lineup. It'll be a winner take all, just so there's a little bit of FOMO there, but I am fading him completely. At 10,400, nothing for me is screaming, you got to play this guy. So I won't be. I will not be playing. I will play one lineup, like I said, but Bryson, I like. Thomas, I like as well. Looking down further from that, we have Patrick Reed, 9,100. Corey Connors, 93, and Patrick Cantlay at 95. They're all beat out by a few 8K golfers in Joaquin Niemann, Louis Oosthuizen, and Cameron Smith. I do like Cameron Smith. Don't really care for Louis this week. I know a lot of people are on him. I don't know if this is an important enough tournament for Louis to play well at. I feel like this is just going to be one of those tournaments that he could easily pull out of. I don't know how much it really matters to him, but yeah, the buckets aren't really singing praise to play Louis. I'm not getting there with Louis. I don't think I'll play him in a lineup or two, but for the most part, I think I'll be fading him as well. I think it's a good bounce back for Cantlay. His putter's been terrible. He did show signs at the PGA Championship, so I don't mind Cantlay, but I'm going to be a little cautious. Scheffler was also rating out a lot. Like Scheffler and Finau showed up a bunch in the same buckets. I think they were in the same buckets. Maybe not. Maybe it was just these two. Anyways, I saw Scheffler and Finau quite a bit popping up. I don't mind Scheffler. $9,000, not terrible. Billy Horschel, $8,100. He's the cheapest guy inside the top 20 for rank. I think it's a decent play. Same with Charlie Hoffman there at 8,300. And then you can see Stuart Sink at 75. So that's your top 20 with SweetSpot scores. Let's go ahead and get into the tee time pairings, which we'll be using that score. The first group I'm going to talk about, and I should mention this too, I'm only going to talk about golfers that are highlighted over here. So the first group I'm talking about is Wyndham Clark, Camilo Villegas, and Bo Hoag. So the coloring that's over here, all three of these guys have to actually have some kind of highlighted color here. I should mention this. Light green is their DK average season long is better than field average. Yellow is their scoring average season long is better than field average. And then dark green is both of their stats are better than field average. And you can see only Camilo and Bo Hoag have scoring average better than field average, Wyndham Clark has both. I do like Wyndham Clark. I don't care for the other two golfers in it. Villegas, has decent buckets, minus his strokes gained bucket and his last week bucket. Those are two I could do without. I don't mind. I'm not going to play much of Villegas. Scrolling down, we get to our first group. I mean, it takes a while to get there, but we get to our first group worth talking about. That is Hideki Matsuyama, Justin Thomas, and Patrick Reed. I like this group quite a bit. Obviously, I like Matsuyama. Matsuyama and Thomas have the same ball flight. Very similar ball flight, I should say. Although Justin Thomas has been putting in a duck hook, much like Patrick Reed, his normal shot. So who knows? Maybe Justin Thomas is the glue that puts this group together. He's going to be hitting shots both, for the same shot shapes as both of these guys, I'm sure. But I kind of like Matsuyama and Thomas a little bit here. I'm not against Patrick Reed at this tournament. I think this is actually a really good place for him to play well. He has a fantastic short game, and you're going to need a good short game. But for group-wise, I think, the golfers that will get advantage will be Thomas and Matsuyama. But really don't discount Reed because he kind of feels like a spiteful player. If everyone's giving more attention to these two, he's going to take it personally and he's going to play better. He plays better with hate fuel than he does with, triumphant cheers for him. The next group after that is Rahm, Schauffele, and Morikawa. Now, I like Rahm. I like Schauffele. I don't care much for Morikawa. I already said that in the SweetSpot score rankings. Could Morikawa play well? Absolutely. This is just my take. It's just more of a gut feel. And also, he doesn't really have the greatest last year bucket, but the rest of his buckets are good. So just so you guys know, the only reason I'm not playing Morikawa is just because I like the plays around him better. Not because he isn't good enough. I just like the plays around him better. 10-4 is too expensive for me. But yeah, he could easily prove me wrong. Finished second, third, fourth. I don't think he's winning this tournament, but he can definitely be in the optimal lineup pretty easily. I just like Schauffele and Rahm a little bit more. Even $700 more than Morikawa. I feel more comfortable playing Rahm than I do Morikawa. And Xander just, it's a $700 discount for Morikawa and a $1,400 discount from Rahm. I like Xander quite a bit this week. When we scroll down, now we get into the afternoon tee times before we talk about the next group. And that's Scotty Scheffler, Kyle Stanley, and Luke List. So at the beginning of the week, I heard a bunch of people around the industry talk about Stanley a bunch because he's mispriced. I talked about this in the preview. If he was mispriced, his value would be over 1 in this spreadsheet. I think he's accurately priced. He definitely has the upside and potential, to really outplay this price tag. But what we've seen this year, that's where he belongs. Maybe he should be 6,400, but when we think of 64 to 61, that's not a huge drop. Sure, he's almost mid-priced, but I don't really view him any differently than I see like a $6,400 golfer that I think is a good play. I think James Hahn is 6,300, and I think he's actually ranked better in the model than Kyle Stanley is. I could be wrong. I might be wrong on that one. But either way, even like a Henrik Norlander down here. Kyle Stanley has won on tour before, I think. Not sure. But we haven't seen anything recently. So why, get so up in arms about Kyle Stanley? I had to submit a little bit as I did more research. That was my initial take. But as I, looked at this, the buckets, he has every bucket in his favor. You obviously know I go by the bucket system. Yeah, he's got every bucket in his favor. Good value, and he's in a group that should help him play a little bit better. Luke List, last time, well, I shouldn't say last time, but not too long ago, I think during the RBC Heritage, it was found that he had vertigo. Vertigo is hard to get rid of. It's not like you just take pills and it's gone. Usually vertigo stays with you the rest of your life. You just know how to manage it better. But I don't know what to make of Luke List. I'm always going to remember that. I'm always going to think about that. And I don't know if I can trust Luke List that much. But I like Scotty Scheffler with these guys, and I like Scotty Scheffler. So the group together, I think, has the potential to really play well together. So yeah, I'm going to give these guys an uptick, and it's just going to sell you guys and myself more on Kyle Stanley. $6,100 seems like a pretty darn good play. As we scroll down, I guess we get to another group that isn't quite the greatest, but obviously we have some golfers here that are better than field average. Sung J M, Martin Laird, and Aaron Wise. Sung J M is Sung J M. He's a very good ball striker, very good iron player. Not quite sure about his around the green game. He's actually minus strokes and around the green, so not good. Maybe that just doesn't play well for him this week. But the group as a whole, I like Martin Laird. I like Aaron Wise. I think they have potential as a group to play really well. I think they all hit the same shot shape. I think Aaron Wise does hit a fade. So they're going to be seeing the similar shot shapes. I think it's going to help them out, especially when Sung Jae is such a straight hitter. I'm not going to say he might not lead off every single hole, but I think having him in the group just allows you to be a little bit more narrow, or really focused more narrowly, if that makes sense. Let's move on from there. Next group is Jordan Spieth, Bryson DeChambeau, and Patrick Cantlay. I like this group. I don't know really who I like more, if I'm being honest. We could always go by price tag. Spieth being the most expensive, easy to kind of fade. But then Bryson's at 10-9. With that logic, I hate that logic, if I'm being honest, to say, okay, those two guys too expensive. I'm just going to play Patrick Cantlay because Bryson and Jordan can easily be in the optimal lineup if they finish 5th or better. So I have no problem playing Spieth or DeChambeau just as much as I'd be playing Cantlay. I like all three of them. I don't know who to give, the benefit to. So I think, with Bryson's length, the ability to gouge out of the rough obviously gives him a little bit more of an advantage. But remember, with length can come crooked balls. If you're hitting the ball faster than the rest of these guys, you have the ability to put more spin on the golf ball. That spin leads to further mishits. So, DeChambeau's not a lock, despite him hitting it further. And of course, you got to remember, there were course renovations. We don't know how much more narrow it is. We don't know, how it's going to affect Bryson this time around. He obviously kind of blew up last year, missing the cut, but yeah, Bryson's in a good spot. I think he's in a good spot to do well here. Let's move on. Next group, McIlroy, Hovland, and Scott. I don't care for Scott. I really don't. I have nothing good to say about Scott. I also really don't have that much bad things to say about Scott. I don't like the fact he isn't playing as much. He's also known to be a golfer that doesn't need to play that much, but I feel like at his age, it's just one of those things that I think he needs the playing practice in order to play well. I'm not going to play that much Scott. I just don't have that much faith in him this week. But I do like Hovland, and I also like McIlroy. I think McIlroy's in a good spot. 10-6, I think he gets a little forgotten at that price range. I like McIlroy quite a bit. And really, that is going to, take care of all the groups. There weren't that many to discuss because there aren't a lot of golfers that are paired up together. That would obviously get me to talk about them. There are some really close ones because Zaire and Smith playing with Sung Hoon Kane, or Sung Kang, I should say. That was a close one to talk about, as was Stuart Sink, Sam Burns, and Tyler Duncan. Obviously, Duncan's not the greatest player to talk about. Neiman, Ortiz, and Poston. I like Neiman and Ortiz together. Henley, I remember going over this, and I almost was going to stop, but Henley, Davis, and Norlander. I like that group. Seems pretty solid, despite only having two golfers that are decent. Same with this one, Streelman, Tringali, and Hagee. I'm not going to talk about everybody, but yeah, there seems to be some pretty decent groups, but those were the main ones. Now, I would typically talk about statement game picks, but I think it's just common, or it's been what am I trying to say? I don't want to say it's a trend or anything like that, but they've been putting their picks out late Tuesday nights. So obviously when I create this video, I can't bring up any of their statements, but I still encourage you guys to go check out statementgames.com or download the app out of whatever store that you have your phone linked to. It's a fun way to play sports. I try to play every single week. Sometimes I kind of forget. You can play more than one sport, but I just kind of stick to golf, and it's free for you guys. So again, I highly encourage you guys to play that. One thing I did during last week's video that actually worked out, last week's strategy video that worked out really well is talking about the guys that I've highlighted in the darker color, which means these are your best golfers. They're your best groups. 2 weeks ago at the PGA Championships, when I noticed this, where at least one golfer from each group finished inside the top 10. Last week, we only had 2 golfers finish inside the top 10. Or I should say 2 of the 4 groups had golfers that finished inside the top 10. But of those 4 groups I talked about last week, 1 represented the top 20 in each of those groups. So I feel pretty strongly that if we were to break these up into 3s, obviously you can see it on the screen, but let me just do this for a little bit of a visual. You can see the dark blue line separating them. Pick one of these guys. I could see you could pick 2 of these guys, anchor your lineups around them, and I think it's going to be decent for you guys to start that way. So this is kind of my first anchor play right here. Choose between Matsuyama, Thomas, and Reed. Pick one golfer from each of these groups that you like the most. And if price allows you to do it, pair them up together. Put all the different pairings together. Now, I will say this. There is a high chance Jon Rahm at 11-1 finishes inside the top 10. There's a high with Jordan Spieth inside the top 10, with Rory McIlroy inside the top 10. You can't put all 3 of those guys together, and it's very difficult to put 2 of those guys together. So it's a possibility. I always say play the percentages. So for me, I think 50% of my lineups, I'm going to pair, 2 of these guys together in separate groups. So like I might do a Matsuyama and a Cantlay lineup one time. Then I might do Matsuyama and a Hovland or Matsuyama and a Schauffele lineup. Also, I wouldn't even mind playing Matsuyama with Rahm, anybody else that's in the 10K range, including Jordan Spieth, who's obviously in the 11K range, but I always go 10K and above. So I think you could do something like that. Obviously, the eyes gravitate towards Adam Scott because he's $7,900, but for me, I don't like that. I don't like him that much, especially even in that group. I don't care for him that much. But of these 4 groups, it'll be interesting to see if one of these guys finishes top 20 in each of the groups. That way we can continue that trend and then just continue looking at this week in, week out. Then you can really know who your optimal plays. A good chance or even just a good idea of who those guys are. So for me, I think Xander shows up. Matsuyama, really like those guys. I don't know who to pick between Spieth, DeChambeau, and Cantlay, so I might not even pick one, but I think it's Rory out of this group for me. And I think I'm going to go that way, but I will be creating some of the other lineups together with these other guys. But this is the first anchor play. Let me open this back up, take the colors off, and let's talk about grass stats because it's a good way to determine, some more of our anchor plays. Our best bent grass golfer in the field is Jon Rahm, and it really isn't even close. Now, these stats go back to 2013. So it's overall average on bent grass courses. Jon Rahm, 17.79. That's really good, obviously. The next closest guy is Hideki at 25.32. We can see Rahm has nearly 40 events under his belt. Hideki has nearly 60, so he's trailing him by around 20 events, but that average is so good. He has a 56% clip of finishing inside the top 10 on bent grass courses. I wanted to bring this up during a different video. I think it was when Rory won the Wells Fargo Championship. Rory and Rahm, 50% of their finishes are inside the top 10 on all courses on the PGA Tour. 50%, both of those guys. There are, Spieth and those guys, they're close. They're up there, like they're in the 40s and whatever. But I think it's Rahm worldwide has more top 10 finishes. Like his percentage of finishing inside the top 10 is greater than Rory. But Rory actually has a better top 10 percentage on the PGA Tour than Jon Rahm. So for me, like, it's a 50-50 shot with Rahm or Rory, anchoring your lineups. And you can see Rory is right behind Rahm. He obviously doesn't play that much better on bent grass. Rory's best grass is Bermuda grass. He's one of the best Bermuda golfers on tour. So, I wouldn't say it's so much flips where then Rory goes up to 50%, but it's really close. I'd have to take a look. But yeah, Rahm or Rory. And then you have Hideki there as well. Hideki just won the Masters, so obviously that accounts for some of this too. And then Jordan Spieth, 76 events on bent grass. He's obviously done really well at the Masters before. 76 events, 41%. That's a pretty good mark. So like you are in good hands there. I don't care to talk a lot about these 10K and above guys, but you can see who your best bent grass golfers are in that 10K range. Our first quote-unquote value play is Jason Day at 7,700. Now, based off of his value, which is his DK points divided into a salary times 100, 0.665 isn't very good value. I don't care for Day. If you saw me in the previous video, I talked a lot about how I didn't care about Day. 33% inside the top 10. The big thing here is his 2020 bent, 73. So he's averaging 73rd place in 2021. Wow, I got to change this. Why did that take 2021 bent grass? So yeah, this number looks great and all, but recently he's just been miserable. He's been awful. I don't trust him. And then there's Scott there at 79, another golfer I don't care about. But then we have Kuchar, which Kuchar seems like a decent play. Kuchar and Fowler, actually, both of those guys, not very good on the bent grass this year. Maybe we just skip them. I think Fowler is ridiculously priced, $8,000. That's not where he belongs. Sure, I think he top 10 at the PGA Championship, but, a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. I just don't care for Ricky Fowler. Patrick Reed is up there, 91. That's good. Bubba Watson. That's an interesting play. 32.50 is his 2021 bent grass average. That's pretty good in this field, and I like that. I mean, he is in the top 20 overall bent grass average. He's okay when it comes to top 10 bent grass percentage. I guess there really isn't anyone that I would care to talk about here. You can see Keegan down here. He's like 21st on this list. If I were to go ahead and sort by 2021, I think we see our guy that we were just talking about. Yeah, there's Bubba. He's inside the top 20 for both overall bent grass and 2021 bent grass stats. So Bubba's not a bad play at 7,800. And then we also see Finau down here as well. Finau has pretty good stats when it comes to bent grass as well. Is there anybody else on here that's really worth talking about? Maybe Patton Kizzire. He's been playing pretty decent this year on bent grass stats. I don't know how I feel about it, if I'm being honest. I don't care. HV3 seems like a decent speculative play. Like, I don't mind playing HV3 this week. Seems pretty decent. And then interesting to see Fitzpatrick, CH3 up here, Sam Burns even. I think Sam Burns' victories on bent grass, if I remember correctly. Maybe not. I think it is, and if it is, these aren't good, these are not good averages on bent grass. Maybe he's figured it out, but I think I could pass Burns this week at 8,900. Doesn't seem very well. The other thing to talk about with these grass stats, I like to sort it by worst to best, because all of these golfers that are at 0%, basically to 5%, you can make the argument to leave 4% in there, but I'm going to cross these guys out like right away. And you can see most of these guys are in the 6K range. So we have, Brian Gay. I'm not going to name everybody. I don't know why I even started there. Henrik Norlander's up there. Last year he finished 6th here, so perhaps it's a good reason to play him. Xinjun Zhang finished 10th. So that's obviously his only top 10. You could say the same thing about Henrik Norlander. His only top 10 was at this tournament last year. Okay, his only top 10 on bentgrass events was at the Memorial last year. There we go. Just so I don't confuse any of you guys out there. And then Christian Bezuidenhout, or Bezuidenhout, I don't care. I'm not going to play him. I think he's a decent play, but I've already known that he struggles on bentgrass, and I don't think I want to play him that much. Same goes for Doug Gim. For all of you guys that backed him, what was it, last week or even the week before, Gim, not good on bent. And again, I'm searching for the top 10. I am looking for the optimal lineup. Gim doesn't get close there. He finished 14th last week, so he was close. 4 points, 4 places away from finishing top 10. And actually, it's probably just one shot. He was off top 10 by one shot. Now, does 14th kill him and getting into the optimal lineup? No, he was probably pretty close, but still goes to show that he wasn't in the optimal lineup. He wasn't even in the realistic optimal lineup, if I'm remembering correctly. So, oh man, Cam Davis is there too. That's a bummer. I did like Davis, but he just looks terrible on bentgrass. So I will probably be fading him because of that. But yeah, these are the golfers I'm just going to cut out. So if you like any of the golfers that you see here, maybe consider pivoting somewhere else. Okay, so that covers grass stats. That covers tee time pairings. Let's go ahead and figure out what our anchor bucket's going to be. And I was kind of messing around with this, trying to find mins for top 5. I think this is a good place to start. So you can see I have this sorted by minimum for top 5. That means every single year these buckets have finished top 5 for as long as I've recorded. Recent form, that goes back to 2014. Salary just really goes back to 2017. Strokes gained just goes back 2 years. So these 3 buckets, not a lot of stats that follow under them. But recent form 2s, that 20 to 40 range within the last 8 weeks, this is their average finishing position. Pretty darn good. Finishing inside the top 5. Again, a minimum of 1, almost 10% success rate finishing top 5. 18.44% success rate finishing inside the top 10. That's good. One thing to note, let me go ahead and open this back up. So that's just, I want to keep that in mind as we go through this. Recent form bucket 2 is going to be a bucket I'm anchoring around. So I should show you this right now. I have my anchor buckets here and we'll discuss them. But we were just talking about recent form bucket 2 golfers. So that's what we have. Yes. So I added that, but I was talking about this in the review video last week, or actually just a couple of days ago. Also, I was talking about this in the strategy video. I didn't know what to do. I thought -1 from the minimum and then -1 from my original projection and then add the minimum to the projection. That's pretty confusing and complicating. And I figured out a way. What I ended up doing instead, super simple. All I did was take the original min, -1 from it, take the projection, -1 from it, and leave it as is. So here's what I'm going to do to figure out my anchor buckets. This score, this adjusted minimum, needs to be 0 or greater. And in all reality, I think it just needs to be 1 or greater. So if I go ahead and I'm going to take out -1, so I keep it to 0. That eliminated a lot of buckets to anchor around. From there, I was kind of hemming and hawing. What do I want to do? You can see the frequency rate for all of these buckets is 100%. So it's already good that I did it this way. But then I was thinking to myself, the fact that this says 0, I can make the argument that it's not going to happen. But if this score over here is pretty high, if it's at least over 1, keep it. So that's my first thought was, okay, let's go ahead, filter this out by conditions. Let's make sure it is greater than 1. Or greater than 0. No. Greater than or equal to 1. That's what it was. So we'll put that there. That eliminates some of the buckets. So now my adjusted projection is 1. Which, again, we can make the argument that we are going to see at least the amount of golfers you see in this column for each of these buckets. So how it would read for last year 4s, I always round down, so I should have probably done that. But this is 1.93. I'm going to say it's 1. We'll see one golfer from the last year 4 bucket. And I think this is the best way to do it. So for me, my true anchor buckets are actually if I take the 0 away and put this here. These are my true anchor buckets. I'm looking at last week 1s, which are golfers who did not play last week. So those are my very first bucket. And I put them in this column here. I put them down here on this line because I kind of want to just build the lineups up here so you guys can see it a little bit better. But last week 1 has quite a bit of golfers in it. So it goes all the way down there. There's 49 total. It's an anchor bucket because obviously we know at least one of these guys is going to finish inside the top 10. When it's 50 golfers, it's, those odds are pretty good. Not impressive, I understand. We can also see how many are in that bucket this year. Course history 2, the next one. That course history between 40 to 60. And that is dating back to 2013. So it's their average finishing position. If it's 40 to 60, I'm projecting 3. And there's 10 less golfers in that one. So both of these guys are at 3. I think it's a pretty decent shot. So again, I added that right here. Course history bucket 2 golfers. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to provide a count for how many times these golfers show up in these anchor buckets. And then perhaps with that, you guys can feel a little bit more comfortable playing some of these golfers. And then that third bucket for me is going to be recent form 40 to 60. I'm projecting around 2. And again, that's with the adjusted. Without the adjusted, it's 3. So it's another popular one to pick from. There are 35 golfers in that bucket this year. We see on average 44. So it's a little lower than usual, but those 3 buckets are my anchor buckets with the recent form bucket 2s that we were just talking about recently. Now, salary and strokes gained buckets to me are a little bit, I don't know, I want to say silly to look around because 7K, we're going to be guaranteed to see a 7K inside the top 10. That's just a given. I don't think it's really worth looking at. I don't want to anchor my lineups around 7K golfer anyways. So I'm not going to, but obviously that shows up. Then strokes gained bucket 1s and strokes gained bucket 3s. Strokes gained bucket 1s mean all stat is positive. The strokes gained off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. They're all positive stats. Strokes gained bucket 3 golfers are positive off the tee and negative putting and whatever in the middle. I normally only care about off the tee and putting. Those are the 2 confidence buckets. And a lot of your stats are actually based off of what you do off the tee. Because your next shot, whatever you have left into the hole and whatever lie it is, will affect the next strokes gained stats. So for me, it's always funny to see JT's a good iron player. Obviously, he's a good iron player. His approach stats are mostly affected by the fact that he can't find the fairway off the tee. And then he puts his iron shot decently close. That's what's gaining him a bunch of his strokes gained approach. Because his level of difficulty of his approach shots are a bit more difficult than most players' difficulties are. So therefore, when he does find the green and when he does park it close, his stats go up. But that's not to take away from JT's actual really good iron game. It's overblown in my opinion. He's good with his irons. Don't get me wrong. But if we're just looking at approach stats, it's a little misconstrued because he's pretty crooked off the tee. So that's my 2 cents. So for me, I don't care about strokes gained stats looking at these. I'm just going to care about these kind of more solid buckets to choose from. So those 4 that we went over, this recent form 1, recent form 2, you can see that right here. Last week 1, course history 2. So if I were to go ahead, I did a little count over here. I have a little count formula in there. If I go ahead and sort this out, and we can scroll over to take a look at who these golfers are. John Rahm, Shane Lowry, Ricky Fowler, Stuart Sink, Charles Schwartzel, Russell Henley, got ahead of myself, Charles Howell III, and Brendan Steele. Those 8 golfers all find themselves in those anchor buckets 3 times. So I said this last week. I'm going to say it again. This doesn't mean they will actually finish inside the top 10. It just gives them a better chance. Like, it doesn't cement them. You know, it's not a lock, but hey, these golfers are showing up 3 times. Chances are of them finishing inside the top 10 are kind of high. So if you want to anchor your lineups around these guys like right away, I have no problem with it. Like, they're obviously, so we have 2 recent form buckets, meaning a golfer has to be in either one of those. You know, they can't be in both, meaning there are only 3 available buckets. So these golfers, the 8 golfers that I just picked, they're in all 3 of those, in one way or another. So, you know, keep that in mind. And then we have a bunch of them at 2. I'll go slowly through them. Go ahead, pause the video, look at some of these guys. Obviously, Bryson. We have a bunch of our 10K golfers here. Which one are we missing? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 with John Rahm up here with 2 or more. Do we have our last 10K golfer down here? No, we don't. Who is our last 10K golfer? Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth doesn't show up. Wow. I feel like that's a mistake, right? Jordan Spieth has to be here. He's not in any of the anchor buckets. So what was recent form 1 and 2? Nope, he's recent form 4. And then it was last week 1. He's last week 3. And it was course history 2. He's a course history 1. So his buckets aren't terrible. Let's start there. They're not terrible, but they're not in the anchor buckets. Very, very interesting. Okay. We can also see Hovland, Schauffele, Cantlay, Matsuyama, a bunch of our good golfers. So it's hard to kind of narrow down which player to really pick from. But if you did like Xander, like I do, boom, there you go. Perfect reason to play him. Same with Matsuyama. You want to know who I don't see is Finau. Finau's down here with 1. He's only in one of them. Now, the fact that he's in one of them is a good sign. You know, as long as you're in one of these buckets, you have a good shot of finishing inside the top 10. Again, being in multiple of these buckets doesn't guarantee you'll be inside the top 10. It just gives you a better chance. So that's my whole, I always say that every single time I do these, just gives them a better chance. So either way, these are my buckets that I will be anchoring around. So when we do use the optimizer, I will be selecting, I will be actually locking in these buckets and having the optimizer select around them. Now, I want to bring one more thing up before we really get into the locks, you know, like my anchor plays. Let's see if I can remember this accurately. Okay, yeah. I remember what I want to do. So I looked at 2020 DK stats, and I wanted to know, because there's a lot of buzz around the green stats, because this is going to be a trickier golf course to hit, you know, your approach shots into the green, and it's going to take, you know, a good around the green game to play well here. And I don't disagree. I think around the green is going to be very vital. So I wanted to take a look. Here's what I'm going to do. We're going to put a condition on each of, so I have 2019 and 2020 for strokes gained stats. These are all season-long stats leading into the tournament, because that's the only thing that makes sense, right? A lot of people use whatever they gained at the tournament and then do their analysis from there. That's insane. I don't understand why people do that. Makes no sense to me. So let's look at greater than 0. Actually, how about greater than or equal to 0? That works. To see all of the around the green positive golfers there are inside the top 10. So if we count, we see 9 golfers inside the top 10, and 4 of them are in the optimal lineup. So it looks like positive around the green stats work. But the other thing I want to mention is missed cuts. We see 25 missed cuts. Now let's flip that around and take a look at negative around the green. We see 3 golfers inside the top 10. 2 of them are actually in the optimal lineup. And we scroll down to our missed cuts, and we have 22 missed cuts and withdraws. So 22 missed cuts for negative around the green. 25 missed cuts for positive around the green. So there's not really an advantage when it comes to making the cut. And really top 10s, there were far more top 10s you saw with positive around the green than there are negative around the green. But there are 2 golfers here that are in the optimal lineup. Now, the big thing with that, I was like, okay, if we do have a negative around the green, do they have positive tee to green? That means their game is, better than average tee to green. And as long as you are struggling in some of these stats, hopefully you're making up with other stats. And the guys that are inside the top 10 with negative around the green stats finish. I mean, they have positive tee to green stats. So if you are looking at golfers that have negative around the green stats, just make sure they have positive tee to green. It seems to be a correlation there. At least that was my 2020. Let me go greater than or equal to. The negative tee to green golfers that we see inside the top 10 had positive around the green. So there's, I wanted to look at that because that's important to me. If you have a bad, tee to green game, hopefully you can save yourself by around the green. And that seems to matter here. So that's worth mentioning, worth putting out there. Looks like I already kind of put some of these filters on here. So let's go ahead and remove them. So you can see the overall picture here for the top 10. Again, let's go ahead and filter less than or let's go greater than or equal to 0. That way we can see all the positive golfers. And we have 8 golfers inside the top 10, and we have 21 golfers missing the cut. If we go ahead and change that to less than, so we get all of our negative around the green, we have 3 guys once again inside the top 10. Once again, they have all positive tee to green stats. And we scroll down to the missed cuts, we have 21. So nearly the same once again when it comes to missed cuts. But the big thing here, once again, negative around the green, pair that up with positive tee to green to get, our golfers inside the top 10. How many exactly were there out of all the negative around the green? There are 43 total records. Let's see, greater than or equal to 0. So of that 43, we see 27. So the majority of them had positive tee to green. Obviously, if we go less than, we see 16. That obviously checks out. Nobody finished inside the top 10. Let's go ahead and see if that's the same here in 2020. So negative, right? Is that what we looked at? I already forgot. And negative around the green. And negative tee to green. 1 top 20, but most of them not there. So why don't we just do that for this tournament, right? Let's take a look at who those golfers are so we can also skip out on them and not play them. So negative off the tee. And all these stats are universal. I look at the same time frame all the time. So 2019, like analyzing 2019 and 2020, it's the same as how I'd be analyzing 2021. Less than 0 and tee to green less than 0. Not a lot, but Mark Leishman now shows up. Uh-oh. Which is surprising. So I don't know how I feel about that. That's fine. I guess I don't care to play a lot of Leishman. Doc Redman's up there. That's an interesting one. Some of these guys, obviously, I don't think I was going to play much of. So you can see the guys that I will probably just be tossing aside. Can Leishman finish inside top 20? Sure. Is that good enough for you? If you're building a cash lineup, that's fine. But I will be staying away from these golfers. It's good to see that. How many greater than or equal to 22 golfers? 23 golfers. Yeah, that's pretty decent. I wouldn't choose more than 2 of these guys because, again, we haven't seen more than 2 in, well, what was that? We've seen 3. Yeah, I guess we've seen up to 3 inside the top 10. So yeah, pick up to 3 of these guys. That's fine. Obviously, you know, someone like a Corey Connors or a Sam Burns or even, I mean, all of them are good plays. I like Grillo. I like Streelman. I like Hoffman. I like all of these guys up here. I like Henley, Munoz. I don't mind playing some of these guys. How about this? Let's take out the 0% golfers. 0 and 4. Drops us down just a little bit. Now we're down to 18 golfers as opposed to 22. So helps out a little bit. But anyways, that's interesting. So obviously I just showed you which golfers you should avoid. So hopefully you take that into consideration. When it comes to anchor plays, I mean, I kind of went over it. If I'm choosing golfers here, I mean, I'm starting like this. I have no problem, you know, starting with these 3 golfers. I also don't mind putting in a Justin Thomas here, starting with those 4 and building lineups out that way. And maybe I'll make a kind of a balanced lineup and start with either Victor Hovland or even Xander Schauffele. Like, I don't mind starting there. So I think no matter what, these 6 golfers are going to be inside, or they're going to be plays that I play quite a bit. They're my anchor plays. Let's put it that way. These 6 golfers, I will be creating lineups with them in one way or another, some sort of way or another. And most likely I'll be pairing a lot of these guys up with a 9K golfer or even another or 8K golfers. If you recall our optimal lineups that we saw from 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, were all different kinds of optimal lineups. We had a 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 6, kind of the traditional lineup build. We also saw an 11 and all 7Ks as one of them. We saw 3 8Ks, a 9K, a 7, and a 6, I believe. So there are multiple ways at this tournament that we can build our optimal lineups. I'm not going to be set in stone with building one way or another, but it's going to heavily revolve around these guys. And I could put Hideki Matsuyama in there as well. He's definitely a play I want to put in a lot of my lineups. I don't mind Cantlay, but he's not going to really be an anchor play. I like Reed, but he's not going to be an anchor play. I think it's going to be the golfers you see on the screen. And then I'm going to fit in some of the guys lower, but for sure I'm going to be playing these 7 golfers. So let's go ahead, throw up the optimizer before this video gets way too long. And I think it already shows. Oh, no. If I go ahead, let me zoom in just a little bit. So again, I'm trying to create lineups that are over $49,000. You can't really see that, but I have my minimum salary set to 49, max at 50. Your realistic optimal lineup is going to be, it's best to try to get close to 50,000 as possible. So let me go ahead and run this optimizer. I have no conditionals in place. The lineup you see here was me messing around with it earlier. So obviously if you like that lineup, go ahead and steal it. I have no problem with it. But let me run that optimizer to show you what it views the optimal lineup based off the SweetSpot score with no conditionals. It starts with Hideki Matsuyama, who I already liked prior to, looking at this. Tony Finau, Louis Oosthuizen, Billy Horschel, Matt Wallace, and Matt Kuchar. So 2 7s, 2 8s, and 2 9s. I don't mind that lineup whatsoever. I like Matsuyama. I like Finau. I don't care for Usti. And the 7Ks, I don't have an issue with that whatsoever. But if I were to build a lineup that I typically do, I usually go 10, 9, 8, 2 7s, and 1 6K. I'll leave it up to the optimizer to choose between, a high 6 or a low 6, or maybe no 6s at all. So let's see what the optimizer pulls out with that kind of conventional lineup build. So it starts with JT, and then it goes to Finau, Keegan Bradley, Emiliano Grillo, Stuart Sink, and Matt Kuchar. So it went 10, 9, 8, 7, 7, 7. That's pretty interesting. How about this? we'll force it to choose a 6K golfer. So we'll go high 6s, and then we'll go low 6s, see if it picks Kyle Stanley. So high 6s, now we put in Rahm, but Matsuyama stays a staple. So does Horschel, so does Sink, so does Kuchar, but now we have Brendan Steele. Let's go ahead and make this a 0 and make this a 1. Run it again. Hopefully we see Kyle Stanley. I'd like to see Kyle Stanley. It would kind of give me a little bit more validation to play him. There you go, Kyle Stanley. Using 50,000, we've got Rahm, Matsuyama, Usti, Sink, Kuchar, and now Stanley. That's pretty decent. So it really likes Rahm, really likes Matsuyama, and obviously it likes the 3 golfers here, Usti, Sink, and Kuchar. Let's go ahead and throw in some of those anchor bucket conditionals. So last week 1, we want to make sure there's 1. Course history 2, we want to make sure there's 1. And recent form 2 and 1, I believe, right? Recent form 1 and 2. Which, if you already see the lineup on here already, it already has all of that covered. So it already has 1 recent form 1, 4 recent form 2s, 3 course history 2s, and 4 last week 1s. So it already has that information in place. But if I go ahead, remove the salary constraints, let's see what the optimal lineup is going to be. It could be very much the same as what it was before. And it is. So Matsuyama, Finau, Usti, Horschel, Wallace, and Kuchar. I want to see what it does with Rory. I like Rory. Let's see what it will build with 1 Rory. So now it just goes from Rory to Usti, Horschel, Grillo, Sink, and Kuchar. So it really likes those golfers. Kuchar, Sink, Grillo, Horschel, and Usti. Let's say I don't want Louis Oosthuizen in my lineup because I don't care for it to show up that much. What would it show me? I might have to get rid of Sink as well. So now it replaces Usti with Cameron Smith, which, yeah, I like that quite a bit. All right, I don't want to see Horschel. I also don't want to see Grillo, Sink, or Kuchar. Actually, I like Grillo. Let's keep him there, but I don't want to see Sink. And I don't want to see Kuchar. Let's see what this optimizer will give me. Rory, Matsuyama, Smith, Grillo, Todd, and Steele. Wow. Brennan Todd, Brennan Steele. Okay. I guess we kind of could see that happening. Let's see. I want to make sure that I have Finau in my lineup. What is the best Finau lineup? Kind of goes with that balanced approach, but actually, hey, I like this lineup quite a bit too. Matsuyama, Finau, Neiman, Smith, Wallace, and Steele. So as wonky as the optimal lineups, I should say wonky, as diverse as that's a weird, it's not a synonym, so don't get that mixed up. As diverse as the optimal lineups were when looking at the optimal lineups, it kind of proves the same here. I mean, it's a strong field event. It's over 600. PGA Championship not too long ago was 900 something. That was the biggest. That was like the strongest field we've seen in golf in a very long time. The Wells Fargo Championship prior to was 400, and last week we had 200 something. I can't remember what it was, but not as strong last week. Or was it 200? Was it 400? Am I thinking differently? I think it was 400 at the Wells Fargo. Anyways, I'm not going to bore you with that. But anyway, this is the second strongest field event over the last 5 weeks. I don't know how much that's going to play into account, but with it being that way, maybe the balanced approach is the best way to go. I'm not going to be stuck one way or another. You know, I usually go 10, 9, 8, 2 7s and a 6, but if I'm being honest, I kind of got burned the last couple of weeks trying to do that. So I'm not going to this week. For the most part, I like this. How about this? Let's get Finau out of there and let's put Kyle Stanley, because I know a lot of people want to build lineups around Kyle Stanley, and maybe I shouldn't be doing this because everyone's going to think of this, or I should say everyone, but you might get the same idea. Henley, I like this lineup a lot minus Morikawa, but guess what? Oh, I can't switch out Morikawa for McIlroy, but I could put in Justin Thomas, no problem. So if I go ahead, throw out Morikawa, what does it give me? Changes it a little bit. So we start with Xander, go to Finau, Niemans. I love this lineup. This lineup's so good. Yeah, I like that lineup a lot. Show me Rory. Come on. Ooh. I like that lineup a lot. McIlroy, Matsuyama, Finau, Wallace, Henley, and Stanley. Yeah, I'm all there. That's that works for me. I like that lineup a lot. I'll have to go double check to make sure some of these Bentgrass stats are correct. You know, I don't want to find anyone with 0%. I'm probably going to adjust my ownership exposures over here. This is just kind of my default ownership model, whatever you want to call it. So I'll definitely go ahead and double check that. But for the most part, yeah, I like that lineup a lot. I'm just going to go ahead and save it so I can remember it. Let's see. Hold on. Was there one thing I wanted to show you guys? How about this? I'm going to lock in Stanley and double check to see what the best 10K golfers, each 10K golfer, what their lineup is. I'm sure it's going to use the same guys. Kuchar, Horschel, Usti, sure. It's going to be the same guys. Now it changes. Now Neiman gets replaced. Or I shouldn't say Neiman doesn't get replaced. He replaces who was there originally. Throw in Bryson. Does that change a lot? It does. Changes 3 golfers. So now we have Bryson, Xander. And now we add Todd. Very interesting. We already saw what Rory's was, I believe. Matsuyama comes into play, doesn't he? No. Hovland does. Okay. That's because I had some of the guys that no. Morikawa with Stanley. Whoa, KH Lee comes into play. He boots Kuchar out. Who stays in, comes in. Now we have Xander and Morikawa. Okay. And then Justin Thomas. Kuchar comes back. But Xander stays. Yeah, so I like Xander quite a bit. I'm not going to play Usti as much as the Optimizer is trying to give me Usti. I might as well just start building lineups with some of these guys so I don't have to see them again. But yeah, I think that's kind of a good representation. I went through a couple of lineups here, so hopefully the industry doesn't hate me for doing something like that, because there are people that dislike when people online do that kind of thing. But yeah, that was kind of my way of going about trying to find anchor plays with the anchor buckets. So I don't know if I have anything else to add to that. Kind of wanted to talk about some of the other buckets, but I think we're going to be okay. Let me just double check quickly. So greater than, I just want to see the success rates greater than, say, 10%. It opens up to a couple more buckets, but with the adjusted projections and stuff like that, we see just a little bit less. So obviously, like last year, 2s and 3s, so those that finished top 20 last year, that's actually a decent bucket to choose from. I don't have any issue with it, although the adjusted min is -1. I don't know how I feel about that. Still, I think it's going to be decent. Last week, 3s show up. I think that's a decent bucket to select from. That's your 1 to 20 from last week. So don't feel, jaded from playing that. I think that's pretty good. Frequency rates are pretty decent for most of these buckets. 85%, that just means 5 out of 6 years it showed up inside the top 10, or 6 out of 7. I can't remember. I think it's 6 out of 7. So yeah, I don't mind the buckets that you see on the screen. 1 to 20, 20 to 40, and 40 to 60 for most of these. 1 to 20, 20 to 40 for last year buckets. 1 to 20, 20 to 40 for last week buckets. So really it's guys coming in with good form, or at least played well last week, played well last year. Course history, 1 to 20, so good course history, and then 20 to 40, 40 to 60. So it's all your really good course history. So don't feel slighted by playing anyone from those groups. And then recent form. So it's really everybody. It reminds me of the PGA Championship quite a bit. So just find your Phil Mickelson in the 6K range, whoever that might be. Might be Kyle Stanley. I don't know. Is he hitting bombs? Probably not. But I think that's going to cover it. Hopefully, I kind of felt like I was a little scapegoat with the anchor buckets, but I mean, those are the 4 that truly, if I were to come back in the review video, I'm going to be like, yep, these worked, because I do feel like they're going to work. Actually want to bring them back up. So I think we're going to see at least 3 from that last week 1. We're going to see 3 from the course history 2. We'll see 2 from recent form 1. And really those are the only ones I talked about. But yeah, I think we'll see 2 7K golfers, 1 from the strokes gained 1 bucket. I think we'll see 3 from the strokes gained 3 bucket. So I don't mind playing that. 0.92 for the Spieth bucket. So maybe Spieth is inside the top 10. Maybe not. I mean, the bucket's kind of iffy on it. But yeah, that's where I'll leave it at that. One thing I want to bring up really quickly. Status of the website. Now, I kind of gave you the goal of the US Open. Don't know if it's going to happen. I have some pages created, and here's the dilemma. I want to get a website out and publish to you guys where you can become a member and take advantage, because I'm just going to provide the optimizer with becoming a member. So basically all it will take is just to sign up, register, that kind of stuff, and the optimizer, for the US Open would be available to you guys, and probably, for the next month for each tournament. That was kind of my goal, and all I would really have to do is just make that page, make the login, which I already have the login created, and making that page wouldn't be that hard. But then I also don't want to publish anything that's incomplete. So as I'm getting into it, I'm a perfectionist. I pay attention to detail very closely. That's what's really kind of halting this, is my pursuit of perfection. Obviously, I do it here with building lineups. Same thing applies for building a website. I want it to look good. So I don't know if I'm going to get it by the US Open. By the way, it's summer. I don't know if you guys knew that. There are a lot of things going on. Last week, I had a friend come over. We, hung out during the weekend. I didn't work on the spreadsheet or the website at all. Same thing's going to happen this weekend. And then the weekend after that's a golf tournament. The weekend after that is yard work. The weekend after that is another golf tournament. And then it's 4th of July weekend. So it looks a little dicey. So I apologize. I know some of you guys are looking forward to it. I'll try my best with all the spare time that I have, which is pretty much 0. I'll try working on it. But yeah, that's the only update that I have for you guys. So hopefully you guys do well this week. Thank you guys for watching. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's win some money, and I will see you during the next video. All right, bye.